Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Astral Tourist Podcast, your cosmic detour into alternate dimensions where the boundaries of time, space, and consciousness fade away. I explore the mysteries of astral projection, out-of-body experiences, lucid dreaming, and consciousness exploration. Thanks for tagging along. Today I'm introducing something new, the Saturn Project. Exploring Jupiter and Saturn up close have been on my astral projection bucket list for a long time. I've seen them in passing, just zooming by, but I hadn't had the chance to stop and really explore either one until now. Actually, like a late August. I've tried to record this episode about 4 different times. Things keep coming up, or something happens with the sound. I don't know what's going on, but maybe the matrix glitches will let me post this version of it. Anyway, with Mars, I found I could get there fairly easily, but at first I wasn't picking up very much activity or anything there. So I started kind of planting myself there energetically. And I have a whole Mars playlist for those that want to find out about that. So basically, I'm just going to keep this part short. I created a pair of specialized sunglasses as a kind of ident, an energy marker that helped me sync my frequency to the planet even further. So over time, that connection deepened. And so I decided to do something similar for Saturn. So I started by projecting an energy work bubble in meditation and shaping it into a spherical observatory placed just outside Saturn's rings. Now this is all just energy work, pre-energy work for the projection. And inside I placed a small indigo and violet crystal, and then I made more of them, embedded with my ident. So I had all these little crystals with my ident in them, and along with pictures of Saturn to serve as a kind of energetic breadcrumb trail and a beacon for anyone else out there who might be curious. I'm just, trying to get seen out there. And so the observatory, basically being a thought form structure, I figured it could be a kind of rest area, observation point, or even just a focus point for jumping off into deeper explorations, whether by remote viewing or astral projection or whatever. So I was also playing around with ideas for a central pylon area within it, and possibly some other devices, sentinels, or Tulpa-like entities. These kinds of constructs help stabilize a space and can sometimes help attract attention as well. So I might go into that further in future episodes. Now keep in mind, I'd only just begun this little thought experiment. I didn't expect any results for at least a few weeks anyway. I'd been exhausted from packing and moving. My life partner had been really stressed out from the move as well. So most of my energy was really just helping him stay grounded and calm and getting us fully moved. So I wasn't really expecting much right away with this idea. And then I got a ping already. So wow, just wow. The picture I made showing the observatory sphere with Saturn in the background is actually a pretty good visual representation of what I started building. And I'll be including more pictures throughout this particular episode as I go along. Not too many, but some. So if you don't usually watch the episode and you're just listening, this is one you might want to watch, or maybe I'll just do a composite image actually. Now that I'm posting this episode later than I intended. And you could just look at the composite thumbnail if you want, or skim along to the various sections of my little Saturn adventure here. And the scenes, I can post them in a bigger format. So anyway, just that visual link and putting the energy out there was enough for something to find me. Yay! So about first contact. Let me start by saying Astral communicates is as translation. Our minds interpret incoming information in the most relatable way possible. So what I describe next is, largely symbolic, metaphoric, and filtered through my own human perception. I try to record the raw impressions as best as I can and just relay the experiences that I have. So when I became lucid, I found myself in space with a presence I had just phased over there because I'd been focusing on the observatory. Instead of my usual target location, which is out over a local lake, I decided to just go for it and see if I could phase to the observatory. So I couldn't see anything at first, just darkness. And then I felt like I was holding hands with someone. And the being said they had found my ident. And then suddenly we phased into a structure. So all of that was, happening very quickly, as things do sometimes in the astral. We were inside what appeared to be a massive home made of enormous boulders. This is what it was looking like to me. But the sensation and the feelings were very different. So this place was the size of several mansions, vast and open. The boulders were smooth, gleaming with white ivory and light pinkish tones. Along one wall, some looked like they were semi-decomposing, possibly, with bright green plant life embedded in the stone. Yet the structure was still very sturdy and intact and strong. The floor was mostly flat with subtle grooves. And note, I recognize that Saturn physically is a gas giant with no solid surface. And this was not lucid dreaming. I was not lucid dreaming this up. I had actually phased out of my body. So, Saturn, again, just layers of gases and liquids as far as I know. Maybe an icy rock or rocky core far below. I looked that up, like if that was possible. And I think I read somewhere that it may have an icy section there in there, somewhere deep inside. So the environment didn't match any known physical conditions of Saturn that I'm aware of, which is exactly why I paid even closer attention, because I know our brains are always translating everything, especially in the astral. So this was a local construct form of communication. There's another being involved who's involved with this too. So really between the two of us, we've got like perhaps two local constructs phasing together telepathically there. So I've learned over time that when dealing with non-human intelligences, it's better to focus on general ideas and emotions than specifics. I assumed the same kind of applied here. I suspected the beings were intentionally using large ideas that maybe I could understand, and my mind was doing its best to render these ideas. So we're talking in idea forms. There was yet another being present to the far left. I couldn't see him. This is once we phased into that structure. So there were the two of us, and then we phased into that structure, and now there's another being that I couldn't really see, but I could sense him. He felt masculine. That's why I'm using the word he. But again, that's just another interpretation. The light inside the structure resembled a soft, late morning glow. I was seeing light with a natural ambient brightness coming from the stones themselves. So this third being asked me, "What are you doing here?" Meaning in the area of Saturn. I had like this image of outer space and my little idents and the observatory and everything. So he meant in like a general vast scope, like, what are you doing here in the area? And so I answered, I'm just a human from Earth exploring space in the astral. I said I was curious about Saturn and wanted to learn more about life elsewhere. Then he asked me something that really struck me because it just seemed so out of place to me. But to him, this is an important detail, you know. So he asked me, do you think I'm poor since my place is so small? And that question really, like I just said, fascinated me because from my perspective, the place was enormous, multiple mansions in size, all those vast boulders and everything. And so I carefully replied, saying that his home looked polished, sturdy, and was much, much larger than anywhere I'd ever lived on Earth. So I think he liked that response. And he responded to me, most people from Earth are too proud to bother talking with, but you're okay. And that struck me too, like how many humans has he spoken with? This being, I have no idea, like what am I being compared to? One other person he didn't like or 100 others? I don't know. And it's not the first time I've encountered beings in the astral who seem to have these mixed feelings about our little planet Earth here. Some seem repelled by it, others intrigued, others are just curious about us. So I thanked him for showing me his home and gently indicated I wanted to explore the area outside before waking up. Now, my original companion was still with me. There was no visible door, but he faced us through one of the lightish pink boulders. We faced into what looked like a city to me. The street matched the material from inside the other being's home there, a smooth, slightly grooved stone. The buildings were made of the same giant boulders, but many rose high into the sky, their tops rounded like dome structures. The sky above was a dim ivory grayish color, subdued but also glowing. We floated along for what felt like a few Earth miles before reaching a large open space. The ground was covered in that same bioluminescent green growth that I had seen inside that first structure, and it was spreading out a bit like a carpet. It climbed up along the stone surfaces, in and around some scattered boulders, beginning what looked like a natural decomposition process again. But I wasn't sure about that. I mean, for all I know, I could have been wrong, and it's perhaps a building process. I mean, I just don't know, but the feeling was decomposition in my mind. The scene reminded me of a park, not in function, but in aesthetic. Just the way it felt. It was, an open area. My astral body was starting to feel fatigued. I sensed a recall signal, but pushed it off for a bit longer. My companion, my guide there, directed my attention to the luminescent plants. They shimmered faintly with purple, blue, and orange glints along the edges of their surfaces. And he asked me, what do you smell? Unfortunately, smell is one of my weaker senses in the astral. But I could feel the presence of smells, like with the rest of my little astral spidey senses. And they were chemical. I felt chemicals. Slightly gassy, a bit like methane or oil. The visuals along the edges of the surfaces there reminded me of that iridescent shimmer you see on puddles when oil leaks from a car, swirling colors on the surface of the water, like if it's raining and you see like that shimmering oil float up. And when I said chemical smells, he gave me a really strong telepathic yes feeling as an emotional confirmation. So that was the key. Communication here is mainly through chemicals and light patterns. And again, a big yes from him, because I was just thinking about it. I was like, right, it's chemical here. It's all chemical. And he's like, yes, yes, yes. So I sank to the ground, leaning against one of the bioluminescent covered boulders, because remember, we're in this combined thought construct, I guess, that he designed, or that we co-created. I don't know, just as a way to communicate. And I felt a faint, high-pitched tone. I didn't quite hear it. I felt it and sensed it. It was hovering just at the edge of perception. And then I could hear it, like in the way back of my brain, I could hear it. So I think I heard Saturn, at least faintly, finally. And I'm just so excited because, I've heard from others that you can hear Saturn, but I never have been able to. So that was my first, hearing Saturn. So wow. Then a small bird flew over my shoulder and landed on the glowing green plant life or chemical life, whatever it was nearby. It really surprised me because I hadn't seen any other life forms. But then I remembered I'd been playing with the idea of creating tulpas to assist in the Saturn Project here, little symbolic helpers that are thought forms. And one of the ideas just that I had been playing with was a tiny bird marked with a Saturn symbol. I hadn't fully built or charged it up yet. It was just an idea in the back of my head before. But it seems my subconscious grabbed onto the image and manifested it right there for me. And the version I saw matched my idea exactly, minus the Saturn image I thought about placing on it. It was still missing that. But the shape and everything and the size and the rest all fit. So that was my pre-construct of the bird tulpa. And so now I've got to name it. So I'd love your help with that. If anybody has some fun ideas for names for my little Saturn tulpa thought form there, let me know. Yeah, wow. Even my tulpa has begun. It's growing. So key takeaways. Saturn's astral layer, or whatever plane I was on there, was not gaseous or cloudy. It presented as a world of smooth stone, polished boulders, and glowing decomposition, or possibly composition. Communication is chemical. That's huge. Impressions come through smell, feelings, emotional cues, and light responses, not words or outright specific visuals. So this type of contact, again, not super symbolic, but using idea forms. So yes, symbolic somewhat, almost xenochemical in nature. The being's perception of wealth, space, and status may point to a very different dimensional or social framework. Definitely, there's some kind of intelligence going on, most definitely. And being, I am told, okay, that I'm okay by a Saturn being, I'll take it as a major win. I mean, Earth doesn't always get the best reviews out there. So, I like and love just, being okay. So thanks so much for tuning into the Astral Tourist. This is just the beginning of the Saturn Project, and I'm excited to see where it leads. I really would love to go back. I've had some setbacks lately. I got sick with the flu. I had more bites. All this weird stuff has been happening since I moved. But anyway, it's little stuff that I'm sure will, smooth out. So I do want to get back to Saturn. If you've had similar experiences, especially with chemical communication, smell-based impressions, or non-human entities, I would love to hear about them. Feel free to chime on in and help name my little tulpa bird there too. So until next time, happy astral travels.